The red wine bottle slipped from Diana Bennett's perfectly manicured fingers before she even realized what was happening. And as she lunged forward to catch it, her $1,000 heels betrayed her on the polished grocery store floor, sending her tumbling straight toward the unforgiving linoleum. Strong hands caught her before impact, steadying her with a firm grip that felt both gentle and commanding. Diana found herself staring into warm, hazel eyes that crinkled at the corners, belonging to a man whose weathered hands suggested hard work and whose concerned expression seemed genuinely kind. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with dark hair that needed a trim and a couple days' worth of stubble that somehow made him look ruggedly appealing rather than unkempt. "You all right, miss?" His voice was deep, carrying a hint of concern as he helped her regain her footing. Diana felt her cheeks flush, an unfamiliar sensation for a woman who commanded boardrooms and made million-dollar decisions without batting an eye. "I am, thank you. I cannot believe I just did that." The man released her once he was certain she was stable, bending down to retrieve the wine bottle that had somehow rolled safely under a nearby display. "Happens to everyone. These floors can be tricky." He handed her the bottle with a slight smile that transformed his entire face. "Thank you again." Diana accepted the bottle, noticing his hands were calloused and strong, so different from the soft hands of the executives she dealt with daily. She found herself strangely reluctant to end this interaction. "Dad." A small voice called out, and a boy who looked about 7 years old came running up, his sneakers squeaking on that same treacherous floor. He had his father's eyes and an infectious grin that showcased a missing front tooth. "Did you find the pasta sauce?" "Just got distracted helping this lady," the man explained, ruffling the boy's hair affectionately. The gesture was so natural, so full of easy love, that Diana felt something tug in her chest. "I should let you two get back to your shopping," Diana said, though she found herself wanting to prolong the encounter. "Thank you for saving me from certain embarrassment and probably a broken bottle." "No problem at all." The man gave her a small nod, already turning his attention back to his son, who was tugging on his worn jacket sleeve. Diana watched them walk away, the man's hand resting protectively on the boy's shoulder as they navigated toward the pasta aisle. She stood there for a moment longer than necessary, her heart doing something strange and unfamiliar in her chest. Then she shook her head, mentally chastising herself for being ridiculous, and continued with her shopping. But she could not stop thinking about those hazel eyes and that genuine smile. It had been so long since someone had looked at her without knowing who she was, without calculating what they could gain from her. He had simply helped her because it was the right thing to do. In her world of corporate sharks and social climbers, such authenticity was rarer than diamonds. Diana found herself unconsciously steering her cart toward the pasta aisle, telling herself she needed marinara sauce anyway, even though she had a fully stocked pantry at home and a personal chef who did most of her cooking. She caught a glimpse of them 2 aisles over, the father patiently explaining something on a label to his son, who listened with rapt attention. "This one has less sugar," the man was saying, comparing 2 jars. "We have to watch our budget, buddy, but we also want to eat healthy, right?" "Right." The boy agreed enthusiastically. "Can we still get the garlic bread?" The man checked a crumpled piece of paper in his pocket, what appeared to be a carefully calculated shopping list. "Yeah, we can manage that this week. You have been doing great with your chores." Diana pretended to examine a can of tomatoes, while her heart did that strange squeezing thing again. There was such tenderness in the exchange, such careful consideration. This was a father who was clearly working with limited resources, but making sure his son understood values beyond just money. She completed her shopping, spending far more time than usual in the store, though she would not admit to herself why. At the checkout, she noticed them 3 lanes over, the father carefully watching the register display as items were scanned, the boy helping to bag groceries with concentration written all over his young face. Deanna walked to her Mercedes in the parking lot, her arms full of bags she could have easily had delivered. As she loaded them into her trunk, she saw the man and his son heading toward an older pickup truck that had seen better days, but was clean and well-maintained. The boy was chattering excitedly about something, and the father was listening with complete attention, as if his son's words were the most important thing in the world. She sat in her car for a moment, hands on the steering wheel, wondering why this brief encounter had affected her so deeply. Deanna Bennett had everything money could buy. She lived in a penthouse overlooking the city, wore designer clothes, and had more zeros in her bank account than most people could fathom. She had built her technology company from the ground up after inheriting a modest fortune from her parents, and turning it into billions through shrewd investments and innovative thinking. But watching that father and son drive away in their beat-up truck, she felt a hollow ache for something she did not have and had never really thought about wanting until now. Connection. Authenticity. Someone who would look at her like she mattered, not because of her net worth, but because of who she was as a person. Deanna drove home to her empty penthouse, where everything was pristine and perfect and utterly devoid of warmth. That night, as she sat with a glass of wine overlooking the glittering city lights, she found herself thinking about warm hazel eyes and a little boy with a missing tooth, wondering if she would ever see them again. The next week, Deanna did something she had not done in years. She went grocery shopping herself instead of having her assistant order delivery. It was Thursday evening, around the same time as her previous visit. She told herself she needed the normalcy, the mundane experience of being just another person picking out produce and comparing prices. She absolutely was not hoping to run into anyone specific, but her traitorous heart jumped when she rounded the corner into the produce section and saw him there, the same man, examining apples with that same careful consideration she had noticed before. The boy was with him again, this time in charge of holding the shopping bag for their selections. Diana took a breath and pushed her cart closer, pretending to be interested in the oranges nearby. She was acting like a teenager with a crush, which was absurd. She was 34 years old, a billionaire businesswoman, and here she was, manufacturing a chance encounter in a grocery store. "The gala apples are better this week," she found herself saying, keeping her voice casual. "They are crisper." The man looked up, and recognition flickered across his face, followed by that genuine smile. "Hey, you are the woman from last week. Glad to see you have not taken any more spills." "I have been more careful with my footwear choices," Deanna replied, gesturing down to her ballet flats. It was true, though she had never thought she would be choosing shoes based on grocery store floor traction. "And thank you for the tip about the apples. Dad knows everything about fruit," the boy piped up proudly. "He used to work in a restaurant." "Not everything, Jake, but I learned a few things." The man's voice was modest, but Deanna caught a flicker of something in his eyes, perhaps pride mixed with regret for a path not taken. "I am Deanna, by the way," she said, extending her hand. "Since we keep running into each other, literally and figuratively." "Kevin Parker," he replied, his handshake firm and warm, "and this is my son, Jake. Nice to meet you both officially." Deanna crouched down to be at eye level with Jake. "You are a good helper for your dad." Jake beamed. "I help with everything. I even fold my own laundry now, except the fitted sheets because those are tricky." Kevin laughed, a rich sound that Deanna felt all the way to her toes. "Fitted sheets are tricky for everyone, buddy." He glanced at Deanna, and she caught something in his expression, a hint of self-consciousness. "Sorry, we should not keep you from your shopping." "You are not keeping me," Deanna said quickly, standing back up. "Actually, I am terrible at picking produce. I usually have someone else do this, but I decided I should probably learn basic life skills." It was more honesty than she had intended to share, but something about Kevin made her want to drop the carefully constructed walls she normally kept up. He did not look judgmental, just curious. "Well, for apples, you want them firm with no soft spots," Kevin explained, demonstrating on the fruit in his hand. And the color should be vibrant. These galas should have that nice red and yellow striping. Deanna found herself genuinely interested, not just in the information, but in watching him talk. There was confidence in his knowledge, pride in being able to teach something useful. They spent the next few minutes discussing produce selection, with Jake occasionally adding his own observations, some more accurate than others. "We are making spaghetti and meatballs tonight," Jake announced. "It is my favorite. Well, one of my favorites. I also really like pizza and tacos and chicken nuggets." "That sounds delicious," Deanna said sincerely. "I cannot remember the last time I had homemade meatballs." "Dad makes the best ones," Jake insisted. "He puts special spices in them." Kevin looked slightly embarrassed by his son's enthusiastic promotion. "I just follow my grandmother's recipe, nothing fancy." "I am sure they are wonderful." Deanna hesitated, then made a decision that surprised even herself. "I do not suppose you would be willing to share that recipe." "Sure," Kevin said easily. "Do you have your phone? I can text it to you." They exchanged numbers, Deanna's fingers trembling slightly as she typed his contact information into her phone. It was such a simple thing, something she did dozens of times a day for business, but this felt different. Personal, promising. "Do you cook a lot?" Kevin asked as they started walking down the aisle together, their carts side by side. "Not really," Deanna admitted. "I have gotten into the habit of working late and grabbing something quick, or my chef prepares meals for the week. But I have been thinking I should learn. There is something nice about the idea of making something with your own hands." Kevin nodded, understanding. "It is one of the things I love. After a long day at work, cooking for Jake helps me unwind. Plus, it is important to me that he grows up understanding that food is love, you know? That someone taking the time to prepare a meal for you means something." Deanna felt that squeeze in her chest again, stronger this time. That is a beautiful way to look at it. They continued shopping together, the conversation flowing easily. Deanna learned that Kevin worked as a construction supervisor, managing crews on various building projects around the city. It was demanding physical work with long hours, but he took pride in it. He had been a single father since Jake was 2, when his ex-wife decided motherhood was not for her and left. There was no bitterness in the way he spoke about it, just matter-of-fact acceptance and a fierce devotion to giving his son the best life he could. Jake was in 2nd grade, loved dinosaurs and soccer, and was reading at a 4th grade level. Kevin's pride when he talked about his son was unmistakable, and Deanna found it incredibly attractive. Here was a man who had every reason to be bitter or overwhelmed, but instead he approached life with gratitude and dedication. In turn, Deanna found herself sharing more than she usually did. She talked about her company in vague terms, not mentioning the scope of her wealth, just that she worked in technology and spent too much time in meetings. She mentioned her parents had passed away when she was in college, leaving her alone in the world with no siblings. She admitted that she sometimes got so focused on work that she forgot to have a life outside of it. "That is easy to do," Kevin said sympathetically. "After Sarah left, I threw myself into work and taking care of Jake. It took me a while to remember that I was still a person outside of being a dad and an employee. Not that being a dad is not the most important thing," he added quickly, glancing at Jake, who was comparing 2 types of pasta with serious concentration. "I can tell it is," Deanna said softly. "He is lucky to have you." Kevin's expression softened. "I am the lucky one. He is the best thing that ever happened to me." They reached the checkout lanes too soon. Deanna found herself wishing the grocery store were bigger, that she had more time before this encounter ended. "Well, it was really nice running into you again," Kevin said, and he sounded like he meant it. "Enjoy those apples." "I will." Deanna hesitated, then took a chance. "And thank you for the recipe. Maybe I will let you know how they turn out if I am brave enough to attempt them." "Please do," Kevin said with that smile that made her heart race. Fair warning, cooking with me via text might be dangerous. I tend to forget that not everyone has the same equipment or knows all the terms. I will risk it, Deanna replied, matching his smile with her own. As she drove home that evening, her phone chimed with a text. Kevin had sent the meatball recipe, along with detailed instructions and helpful tips. At the bottom, he had written, "Feel free to ask questions. Happy to help." Deanna sat in her car in the parking garage of her building, reading and rereading the text. She could not remember the last time someone had offered help so genuinely, without expecting anything in return. It made her want to actually try the recipe, even though she had no idea if she even owned the right type of pan. That weekend, Deanna found herself in a kitchen supply store, of all places, buying equipment she did not know she needed until she researched Kevin's recipe. A good quality skillet, proper measuring spoons, a mixing bowl that was the right size for combining meat and spices. The clerk seemed bemused by her questions, which revealed her as a complete novice, but Deanna did not care. Saturday evening, she stood in her state-of-the-art kitchen that had barely been used and attempted to make meatballs. She texted Kevin questions throughout the process. "How do I know if the oil is hot enough? It should shimmer a bit. You can test it by dropping in a tiny piece of bread. If it sizzles immediately, you are good to go. What does it mean to brown the meat? How brown? Like a nice tan, not burned. You want a good color on the outside while keeping the inside moist. I think I added too much salt. Is there a way to fix that? Add a little bit of sugar to balance it out. Just a pinch, and maybe some extra tomato sauce when you are simmering them." His responses were patient, sometimes amused, but always helpful. What should have been a stressful experience became fun, almost like he was there in the kitchen with her, guiding her through the process. When she finally sat down to eat her creation, Deanna felt a surge of accomplishment. The meatballs were not perfect, a bit lopsided and probably over-seasoned, but she had made them herself, with her own hands. Following instructions from someone who had taken the time to help her, she sent Kevin a photo. "I did it. They may not be pretty, but they are edible." His response came quickly. "They look great. How do they taste? Honestly, pretty good. I cannot believe I actually cooked something real. Congratulations, you are officially a cook now. Next time will be even better." Deanna found herself smiling at her phone like a fool. Next time. The words suggested this was not a one-off interaction, that there would be more conversations, more moments of connection. Over the next few weeks, Deanna found reasons to visit that grocery store more often. Sometimes she would see Kevin and Jake. Sometimes she would not. When she did, their conversations grew longer, more comfortable. She learned that Kevin's favorite color was blue, that he had been raised by his grandmother after his own parents died in a car accident when he was 10, that he dreamed of one day opening his own restaurant, but had put those dreams aside to provide stability for Jake. Jake warmed up to her quickly, telling her about school and his friends and the soccer team he had just joined. Deanna found herself charmed by his enthusiasm and innocence, the way he saw the world with such wonder and optimism. She started keeping a mental note of his interests, though she was not sure why. Kevin remained friendly but somewhat reserved, and Deanna could not tell if he was just naturally cautious or if he was deliberately maintaining a boundary. She did not want to push, but she found herself thinking about him constantly. He occupied her thoughts during board meetings and strategy sessions, distracting her in ways that should have been alarming but instead felt thrilling. One Thursday evening, Deanna arrived at the grocery store to find Jake looking upset, his eyes red-rimmed while Kevin tried to console him. She approached carefully, not wanting to intrude but concerned. "Is everything all right?" she asked softly. Kevin looked up, relief flickering across his face when he saw her. "We are okay. Jake just had a rough day at school." "Someone said my shoes were ugly," Jake mumbled, looking down at his sneakers, which were admittedly worn and a bit too small. Diana's heart broke. She crouched down beside him. "Can I tell you a secret? When I was your age, I had to wear shoes that were way too big because they were hand-me-downs from my cousin. Kids made fun of me all the time. I know it hurts, but those kids are just being mean because they do not know any better. Your shoes are not ugly. They are your shoes, and they get you where you need to go. Jake sniffled, looking at her with watery eyes. Really? People made fun of you? All the time, Deanna confirmed. Kids can be cruel sometimes, but you know what? The people who matter, the people who are worth being friends with, they do not care about shoes or clothes or any of that stuff. They care about who you are as a person, and you are pretty awesome. A small smile crept onto Jake's face. You think I am awesome? Definitely. You help your dad with shopping, you work hard at school, and you are kind to people. That is what makes someone cool, not what they wear. Kevin was watching her with an expression she could not quite read, something warm and grateful and maybe a bit more. When Jake ran ahead to grab a cart, momentarily cheered, Kevin touched her arm gently. Thank you, he said quietly. That really helped. He has been upset all afternoon, and I did not know what to say to make it better. You would have found the right words, Deanna assured him. You are a great dad. I try, but sometimes I feel like I am failing him. I cannot afford the newest sneakers or the brand name clothes. I cannot give him everything other kids have. Deanna shook her head firmly. Kevin, you are giving him something so much more valuable. You are giving him love, attention, and values. That is worth more than any material thing. Kevin looked at her for a long moment, and Deanna felt the air between them shift, become charged with something unspoken. How do you always know the right thing to say? I do not, Deanna admitted. I just speak from experience. I grew up with very little at first, then later I had money but no family. Trust me, Jake has something precious. He has you. They continued shopping together, but something had changed. The conversation went deeper, more personal. Kevin opened up about his fears and insecurities as a parent, the constant worry that he was not doing enough. Deanna shared her own struggles with loneliness and the isolation that came with success, how she sometimes felt like she was living behind a glass wall where everyone could see her, but no one could truly reach her. By the time they reached the parking lot, Deanna knew she did not want this evening to end. Would you two like to grab dinner? She found herself asking. There is a diner near here, nothing fancy, just burgers and fries, my treat. Kevin hesitated, and Deanna could see him wrestling with pride and practicality. You do not have to do that. I know I do not have to, Deanna said gently. I want to, please. It has been a long week, and I could really use some company. Jake looked up at his dad with hopeful eyes. Can we, Dad? Please. Kevin looked between his son and Deanna, then nodded slowly. Okay, thank you. That would be nice. The diner was warm and crowded, filled with the comfortable noise of families and friends sharing meals. They squeezed into a booth, Jake sliding in next to his dad while Deanna sat across from them. The menu was laminated and sticky. The coffee came in thick white mugs, and Deanna could not remember the last time she had felt so content. Jake ordered a cheeseburger with extra pickles and chocolate milk. Kevin got the meatloaf special. Deanna opted for a club sandwich, though she found herself more interested in the company than the food. So what else do you like besides soccer and dinosaurs? Deanna asked Jake, genuinely curious. Jake launched into an enthusiastic explanation of his various interests, which ranged from space exploration to video games to wanting to learn how to skateboard. Kevin interjected with occasional clarifications or corrections, but mostly he let Jake talk, encouraging him to express himself. Deanna found herself enchanted by the dynamic between father and son. There was such ease in their relationship, such unconditional love. Kevin never dismissed Jake's ideas or interests, even when they were fantastical or impractical. He listened with real attention, asked follow-up questions, treated his 7-year-old's opinions with respect. What about you? Kevin asked her when Jake paused to take a massive bite of his burger. What did you want to be when you were Jake's age? Deanna thought back, a wistful smile crossing her face. An astronaut, actually. I was obsessed with space. I had glow-in-the-dark stars all over my ceiling and every book about the solar system I could find. That is so cool, Jake exclaimed around his mouthful of food. Chew first, buddy, Kevin reminded him gently, then turned back to Deanna. What changed? I got older, I guess, more practical. I fell in love with computers and technology instead. The idea that you could create something from nothing, just code and imagination. It felt like a different kind of exploration. Do you ever regret it? Kevin asked. Not pursuing the astronaut dream, Deanna considered the question seriously. Sometimes, but I think we all have multiple paths we could take in life. I am happy with where I ended up, mostly. Though lately, I have been wondering if I have been too focused on one aspect of my life at the expense of others. Kevin nodded, understanding. Balance is hard. I struggle with that, too. Making sure Jake is taken care of, keeping my job, trying to have some kind of personal life. Usually something has to give, and it is usually the last one. Their eyes met across the table, and Deanna felt that electric charge again, the sense of possibility hanging in the air between them. She wondered if he felt it too, this pull that seemed to grow stronger every time they met. Jake, oblivious to the undercurrents, had moved on to discussing his upcoming soccer game. Will you come watch, Dad? It is Saturday at 10. Of course, buddy, I would not miss it. Deanna found herself speaking before she could second-guess the impulse. I would love to come too, if that is okay. I have never been to a kids' soccer game. Jake's face lit up. Really? You would come watch me play? Kevin looked surprised but pleased. You do not have to do that. I am sure you have better things to do on a Saturday morning. Actually, I do not, Deanna said honestly. I usually spend Saturday morning catching up on work emails. Watching Jake play soccer sounds much more enjoyable. Then you should definitely come, Kevin said, his smile reaching his eyes in a way that made Deanna's heart flutter. Fair warning, though. 7-year-old soccer is basically organized chaos. The kids mostly just swarm around the ball. Sounds perfect, Deanna said, and she meant it. The rest of the dinner passed too quickly, filled with easy conversation and laughter. When the check came, Kevin tried to insist on splitting it, but Deanna waved him off. You can get it next time, she said, then realized what she had implied. That there would be a next time, that this was becoming something regular, something real. Kevin did not object to the suggestion. Next time, then. They walked out to the parking lot together, the autumn air crisp and cool. Jake was talking a mile a minute about his soccer team, the words tumbling over each other in his excitement about Deanna coming to watch. Kevin's hand rested on his son's shoulder, that ever-present protective gesture that Deanna had come to recognize as characteristic of their relationship. Thank you again for dinner, Kevin said when they reached his truck. And for what you said to Jake earlier about the shoes, it meant a lot. Anytime, Deanna replied. She hesitated, then added, I really enjoy spending time with you both. I know we did not meet under the most conventional circumstances, but I am glad I tripped that day. Kevin laughed, the sound warm in the evening air. I am glad too. Though maybe grateful is a better word. It is nice to talk to someone who gets it, you know. Life is not always easy, but having good people around makes it better. It really does, Deanna agreed softly. She watched them drive away. Kevin's old truck rumbling to life and pulling out of the parking lot with Jake waving enthusiastically from the passenger window. Deanna stood there in the glow of the streetlights, feeling like something significant had shifted in her life, like she had turned a corner and found a path she had not known she was looking for. That night, lying in her massive bed in her pristine penthouse, Deanna thought about worn sneakers and secondhand shoes, about the difference between having everything and having what mattered. She thought about Kevin's calloused hands and genuine smile, about Jake's gap, toothed grin, and boundless enthusiasm. She thought about homemade meatballs and grocery store encounters and soccer games on Saturday mornings. For the first time in years, Deanna felt like she was part of something, connected to people who saw her as more than just her success or her net worth. It was terrifying and exhilarating in equal measure. Saturday morning arrived bright and clear, perfect weather for a soccer game. Deanna found herself standing in front of her closet, paralyzed by indecision. What did one wear to a children's soccer game? Her usual wardrobe consisted of designer suits for work and elegant dresses for social events. She had nothing that seemed appropriate for sitting on metal bleachers watching 7-year-olds chase a ball. Eventually, she settled on jeans, a simple sweater, and boots that were comfortable rather than fashionable. She caught her reflection in the mirror and barely recognized herself. She looked normal, approachable, like someone who might actually belong at a suburban soccer field rather than in a corporate boardroom. The soccer complex was buzzing with activity when she arrived. Multiple fields were set up with games at various stages, children in brightly colored uniforms running around while parents cheered from the sidelines. Deanna felt overwhelmed by the chaos, unsure where to go or how to find Kevin and Jake among the crowd. "Deanna, over here." Kevin's voice cut through the noise, and she turned to see him waving from the bleachers nearest to the second field. Relief flooded through her as she made her way over. "I was worried I would not find you," she admitted as she climbed up to sit beside him. "There are so many people." "Yeah, Saturday morning soccer is serious business around here," Kevin said with an amused grin. He handed her a disposable cup of coffee. "I brought an extra, figured you might need it. It is from the concession stand, so nothing fancy, but it is hot." Deanna accepted the coffee gratefully, touched by the thoughtful gesture. "Thank you. This is perfect." Kevin looked different this morning too, more relaxed in worn jeans and a faded sweatshirt, a baseball cap shading his eyes from the morning sun. He was holding another cup of coffee and had a blanket draped over his shoulders against the autumn chill. Jake was so excited this morning he could barely eat breakfast, Kevin shared, pointing toward where the kids were warming up on the field. "He has been talking nonstop about you coming to watch." Deanna spotted Jake among the children in blue jerseys, his concentration fierce as he practiced dribbling the ball. "He is really good," she observed. "He loves it," Kevin said with paternal pride. "It is good for him to have something that is his, you know? Something he works at and improves on. Plus, it helps him make friends and learn about teamwork." The game started, and Kevin was right about the organized chaos aspect. The children swarmed around the ball in a tight cluster, occasionally breaking free to run in the general direction of a goal. Jake was one of the more coordinated players, managing to keep control of the ball several times and even making a few good passes. Deanna found herself completely absorbed in the game, cheering when Jake's team scored and groaning sympathetically when they let in a goal. Kevin provided running commentary, explaining the basic rules and pointing out when Jake did something particularly good. His pride and love were evident in every word, every gesture. "There, did you see that? Great pass, Jake," Kevin shouted, jumping to his feet as Jake managed to send the ball to a teammate who scored. Deanna stood up too, caught up in the excitement. "That was amazing." They sat back down, grinning at each other like conspirators. Kevin's shoulder pressed against hers in the cramped bleacher space, and Deanna was acutely aware of his proximity, the warmth radiating from him despite the cool morning air. "This is really fun," Deanna said honestly. "Thank you for letting me come." "Thank you for wanting to," Kevin replied. "It means a lot to Jake, and to me," he added more quietly. Deanna felt her cheeks warm despite the chill. "I cannot remember the last time I did something like this." Something normal and simple, and just about being present in the moment. Kevin studied her face, his expression thoughtful. "Can I ask you something? You do not have to answer if it is too personal." "Go ahead," Deanna encouraged. "What do you actually do for work?" "You mentioned technology, but you are always kind of vague about it. I get the sense there is more to it than you let on." Deanna had known this conversation would come eventually. She had been deliberately evasive, not wanting her wealth to change the easy dynamic they had developed. But Kevin deserved honesty, especially if this friendship was going to continue to grow into whatever it was becoming. "I own a technology company," she said carefully. "We develop software solutions for businesses, security systems, data management, that sort of thing. It has been quite successful." "That sounds impressive," Kevin said. "So you are like a CEO or something?" "Something like that." Deanna took a breath. "Kevin, I am not just doing okay financially, I am very wealthy. The company is worth billions." "I did not tell you before because I liked that you did not know, that you treated me like a regular person." She watched his face carefully, trying to gauge his reaction. Kevin was quiet for a moment, processing this information. Deanna braced herself for the change she had seen so many times before when people learned about her net worth. The calculations in their eyes, the sudden shift in how they treated her, but Kevin just nodded slowly. "That explains the expensive shoes you were wearing when we met," he said with a slight smile. "I wondered how someone could afford heels that nice just for grocery shopping." Deanna laughed, relieved by his low-key response. "You noticed my shoes." "Hard not to when they almost sent you sprawling across the floor," Kevin teased. Then his expression became more serious. "Does it make you uncomfortable that I am not in the same financial situation? Because I have to be honest, Deanna. I work hard and I provide for my son, but I am never going to be rich. I drive a 15-year-old truck and budget carefully to make sure we can afford the basics." "That does not matter to me at all," Deanna said earnestly. "If anything, I admire what you have done with Jake. You have raised an incredible kid who is kind and enthusiastic and secure in your love. That is worth more than any amount of money." "But it is not just about worth," Kevin said slowly. "It is about practical realities. We come from very different worlds. I shop at discount stores and clip coupons. You probably have people who do that for you. I am here, are not I?" Deanna gestured to the soccer field, the bleachers, the disposable coffee cup in her hand. "I do not care about the differences in our bank accounts, Kevin. I care about how I feel when I am around you and Jake. I feel real. I feel like myself. That is something money cannot buy." Kevin looked at her for a long moment, and Deanna could see him wrestling with something internal. Finally, he spoke. "I need to be careful, not just for me but for Jake. He has already gotten attached to you. If this is just a novelty for you, if you are going to get bored of slumming it with the working class and move on, I need to know now." The words stung, but Deanna understood where they came from. Kevin was protecting his son as he should. "This is not a novelty," she said firmly. "I am not slumming it. I genuinely care about you and Jake. I have not felt this connected to anyone in years, maybe ever. But I understand your concern, and I respect it. I just ask that you give me a chance to prove that I am serious about this." "About what exactly?" Kevin asked, his hazel eyes searching hers. "Friendship, or something more?" Deanna's heart hammered in her chest. This was the moment, the point where she either took a chance or retreated back into her safe, lonely existence. "I would like it to be something more," she said quietly. "If you are open to that. I know it is complicated, and there are a lot of factors to consider, but I have not been able to stop thinking about you since the day we met. You make me laugh. You challenge me to be more present, and you have shown me what real devotion looks like. I would like to see where this could go." Kevin's expression softened. "I have been thinking about you too," he admitted. "More than I probably should, but Deanna, I come with a kid. A package deal. Dating me means being involved in Jake's life, and that is a big responsibility. I cannot have people drifting in and out of his world." "I understand that," Deanna said. "And I would not want to be with you if you felt any differently. The fact that Jake is your priority makes you even more attractive to me. I know I do not have experience with kids, but I am willing to learn. I want to be there for both of you if you will let me." Before Kevin could respond, a whistle blew signaling halftime. The kids came running off the field, and Jake spotted them immediately, his face splitting into a huge grin as he ran over. "Did you see me? Did you see that pass I made?" He asked breathlessly, bouncing with excitement. "We saw it. You were amazing." Deanna exclaimed, reaching out to high-five him. Jake slapped her hand enthusiastically, then turned to his dad. "Can Deanna come get ice cream with us after, please?" Kevin glanced at Deanna, a question in his eyes. She nodded, smiling. "I would love to." "Then yes, she can come," Kevin confirmed, ruffling Jake's hair. "Now get back out there and show them what you have got in the second half." Jake ran back to rejoin his team, still bouncing with energy. Kevin turned back to Deanna. "We have not finished our conversation." "I know," Deanna said, "but maybe we can continue it later. For now, let's just watch Jake play and enjoy the morning." Kevin nodded agreement, and they settled back into their seats, but something had shifted between them. The air felt charged with possibility, with the unspoken acknowledgement that they were standing on the edge of something significant. Jake's team won their game 3-2, and the celebration among the kids was jubilant. Deanna found herself swept up in the excitement, cheering and clapping along with all the other parents. When Jake ran over after shaking hands with the opposing team, Deanna instinctively opened her arms, and he crashed into her for a hug. "We won. We actually won," he shouted. "You played so well," Deanna told him sincerely. "You should be really proud." The ice cream shop was packed with families who had the same post-game celebration idea. They managed to snag a small table in the corner, and Jake insisted on getting a triple scoop of chocolate, which Kevin negotiated down to a double scoop with a promise that Jake would actually eat his lunch later. Deanna got vanilla with caramel sauce, while Kevin opted for coffee-flavored ice cream. They sat squished around the tiny table, their knees bumping underneath, while Jake regaled them with a play-by-play of every significant moment from the game. And then Tyler totally stole the ball from that big kid on the other team, and he passed it to me, and I kicked it to Marcus, and Marcus scored. Jake's hands were moving rapidly, illustrating the action as he spoke around mouthfuls of ice cream. "Sounds like great teamwork," Deanna observed. "That is what Coach always says. Soccer is a team sport. You have to work together." Jake took another enormous bite of ice cream, getting it all over his nose in the process. Kevin reached over with a napkin to clean his son's face, the gesture so automatic and tender that Deanna felt her heart squeeze. This was what love looked like in its purest form. Not grand gestures or expensive gifts, but small moments of care and attention. "So what do you usually do on Saturday afternoons?" Kevin asked Deanna as Jake focused intently on his ice cream. "Honestly, usually work," Deanna admitted. "Maybe go to the gym. Sometimes I meet with friends for brunch, but that has become less frequent. Most of my friendships are pretty surface level, people I know through business or social obligations." "That sounds lonely," Kevin said quietly. "It is," Deanna agreed. "I did not realize how much until recently." Their eyes met across the table, and Deanna saw understanding in Kevin's gaze. He got it, the isolation that came from having your life consumed by a single focus, whether that was work or parenting or just surviving day to day. "Well, our Saturday afternoons are usually pretty low-key," Kevin said. "Lunch, maybe some errands. Jake does homework if he has any. Sometimes we go to the park or just hang out at home, nothing exciting." "It sounds perfect," Deanna said sincerely. "Would you like to join us?" Kevin asked, and there was something vulnerable in the offer, like he was taking a chance. "For the afternoon, I mean, if you do not have other plans." "I would really like that," Deanna replied, her smile genuine and warm. They spent the afternoon in a way Deanna had never experienced before. Casual, unstructured, just being together. They went back to Kevin's apartment, a modest two-bedroom in an older building that was clean but worn. The furniture was secondhand but comfortable, the walls decorated with Jake's artwork and family photos. Diana felt more at home there in those few hours than she did in her expensive penthouse. They made sandwiches for lunch together, Jake helping with serious concentration. They played board games at the kitchen table, Jake winning more often than not through a combination of luck and enthusiasm. They watched a movie on Kevin's small television, Jake snuggled between his father and Deanna on the worn couch. It was ordinary and mundane and absolutely wonderful. When evening approached, Deanna reluctantly acknowledged that she should probably head home. Jake protested, wanting her to stay for dinner and movie night, but Kevin gently reminded him that Deanna had her own home and life to get back to. "But she can come back, right?" Jake asked anxiously. This was the best Saturday ever. "If Deanna wants to, she is always welcome," Kevin said, glancing at her with warmth in his eyes. "I definitely want to," Deanna assured Jake, crouching down to his level. "Thank you for letting me be part of your day. I had a wonderful time." Jake hugged her tightly, unself-consciously, the way children do when they genuinely like someone. Deanna hugged him back, feeling her eyes sting with unexpected emotion. Kevin walked her to her car, leaving Jake inside to start picking up the game pieces. In the dimming light of early evening, standing beside her Mercedes, the contrast between their worlds felt more apparent, but it also felt less important. "Thank you for today," Deanna said. "All of it. The soccer game, the ice cream, your home. I cannot remember when I have felt this happy." "Thank you for wanting to be part of it," Kevin replied. He reached out, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear in a gesture that was both tender and intimate. "I meant what I said earlier. Jake is already attached to you. I am getting there too, if I am being honest. But I need to know you are serious about this, about us." "I am serious," Deanna said firmly. She took his hand, lacing her fingers through his. "Kevin, I have spent the last decade building a company and making money and climbing ladders that do not actually lead anywhere meaningful. Being with you and Jake today, I felt more fulfilled than I have in years. This is what I want. You are what I want." Kevin squeezed her hand, his thumb tracing circles on her palm. "This will not be easy. We have different lives, different responsibilities. People might judge us, might question what we are doing together." "Let them," Deanna said. "I have spent too much time worrying about what other people think. For once, I want to do something just because it feels right." Kevin smiled, that genuine smile that transformed his entire face. "It does feel right, does not it? It really does." He leaned in slowly, giving her time to pull back if she wanted to. Deanna did not want to. Their lips met in a kiss that was gentle and sweet and full of promise. It was not her first kiss, not by a long shot, but it felt like the first one that truly mattered. When they broke apart, both of them were smiling. "So we are doing this?" Kevin asked. "Really trying this?" "We are really trying this," Deanna confirmed. She drove home with a lightness in her chest she had not felt in years, maybe ever. The city lights blurred past her window as she replayed the day in her mind. The soccer game, ice cream, board games, and that perfect kiss. This was what life could be like when you opened yourself up to connection, to vulnerability, to love. Over the following weeks, Deanna and Kevin built a relationship that defied the expectations of both their worlds. They went on proper dates when Kevin could arrange childcare, dinners at quiet restaurants where they talked for hours about everything and nothing. But more often, their time together included Jake, because that was the reality of dating a single parent, and Deanna would not have wanted it any other way. She attended every one of Jake's soccer games, becoming a fixture on the bleachers next to Kevin. The other parents began recognizing her, accepting her as part of Kevin and Jake's unit. She learned the names of Jake's teammates and their families, became part of the community that surrounded youth sports. Deanna also started scaling back her work hours, delegating more to her capable executive team. She realized her company would not crumble if she was not personally involved in every decision, and the freedom it gave her was intoxicating. For the first time, she had space in her life for something besides work. Kevin, for his part, introduced her to his world with a mixture of pride and trepidation. His coworkers were surprised when he brought Deanna to the company holiday party, unable to quite reconcile this polished, elegant woman with their blue-collar supervisor. But Deanna charmed them with her genuine interest in their work and her lack of pretension. "You really do not care, do you?" Kevin asked her as they drove home from the party. About the differences in what we do, how much we make. I really do not, Deanna confirmed. Your work is just as important as mine, probably more so. You build actual things that people use and live in. I push code around. You do more than that, and you know it, Kevin said with a laugh. Jake grew more comfortable with Deanna, too, his initial excitement settling into genuine affection. She became a regular presence in his life, someone he could count on to show up, to listen, to care. Deanna learned about dinosaur species she had never heard of, listened to rambling stories about playground politics, and helped with homework when Kevin was running late from work. One evening, about 2 months into their relationship, Deanna was at Kevin's apartment helping Jake with a school project about space. They were constructing a model of the solar system using foam balls and paint, spread out on newspapers covering the kitchen table. Did you really want to be an astronaut when you were little? Jake asked as he carefully painted Jupiter's swirling storms. I really did, Deanna confirmed. I thought it would be the most amazing thing to see Earth from space and explore other planets. That would be so cool, Jake agreed. But I am glad you did not become an astronaut, because then you would not be here with us. Deanna felt her throat tighten with emotion. I am glad too, sweetheart. Kevin emerged from his bedroom, where he had been taking a work call, pausing in the doorway to watch Deanna and Jake bent over their project together. The look on his face was tender and contemplative, like he was seeing something important take shape before his eyes. Later, after Jake had gone to bed and Deanna was gathering her things to leave, Kevin stopped her. Can we talk for a minute? They settled on the couch, Kevin's arm around Deanna's shoulders, pulling her close. I have been thinking, he started carefully, about us, about where this is going. We have been together for a couple months now, and it has been amazing. Better than I could have hoped. I feel the same way, Deanna said, though she could hear a but coming. But I need to know what you see for the future, Kevin continued. Because Jake is getting more attached every day, and so am I. If this is not going to be long-term, if you are going to decide this life is not what you want, I need to know now before anyone gets more hurt. Deanna turned to face him fully, taking both his hands in hers. Kevin, I love you. I know it has only been a couple months, but I know how I feel. I love the life we are building together. I love being part of Jake's world. I love coming home to you instead of an empty apartment. This is not temporary for me. I want a future with you. Kevin's eyes searched hers, looking for certainty, for truth. I love you too, he said quietly. I have for weeks, but I was afraid to say it, afraid it was too soon or too much, or that it might scare you away. You could not scare me away if you tried, Deanna assured him. I am all in, Kevin. Completely. They kissed, deeper this time, with the kind of passion that came from acknowledged love and mutual commitment. When they broke apart, both of them were breathing heavily, wanting more but aware of Jake sleeping in the next room. Stay, Kevin whispered. Not for that, he added quickly. Just stay the night, wake up here tomorrow, let us see what that feels like. Deanna did not hesitate. Okay. She borrowed a t-shirt to sleep in, brushed her teeth with a spare toothbrush Kevin produced from his bathroom cabinet, and climbed into his bed. It was smaller than her king-sized mattress at home, the sheets less expensive, the room a fraction of the size of her master suite. But as Kevin pulled her close, his warmth surrounding her, Deanna felt like she had finally found where she belonged. She woke to the sound of Jake's voice from the other room and the smell of coffee brewing. Kevin was already up, had probably been careful not to wake her. Deanna pulled on her jeans from the night before and padded out to the kitchen barefoot. Jake was eating cereal at the table, still in his dinosaur pajamas. He looked up when Deanna appeared, his face breaking into a surprised smile. You are still here. I am, Deanna confirmed, accepting the mug of coffee Kevin held out to her. Does that mean you are Dad's girlfriend now? Like officially? Jake asked with the blunt curiosity of childhood. Deanna and Kevin exchanged glances. Yeah, Kevin said. Deanna is my girlfriend. Is that okay with you? Jake considered this seriously. So does that mean she will be around more? Like a lot more? Would you like that?" Deanna asked gently. "Yeah," Jake said with conviction. "You are nice and you help with homework and you think my jokes are funny. Dad, can we make her breakfast? We should make her special pancakes." Kevin laughed. "I think that is a great idea, buddy." They made pancakes together, the three of them navigating the small kitchen, bumping into each other and laughing. Deanna was terrible at flipping them, sending one flying across the room, which Jake thought was hilarious. It was chaotic and messy and perfect. As they sat down to eat their slightly lopsided pancakes, Deanna looked at Kevin and Jake and felt overwhelming gratitude. This was family, she realized. Not the cold, lonely existence she had been living, but this warmth and laughter and acceptance. The months that followed were some of the happiest of Deanna's life. She and Kevin navigated the challenges of blending their different worlds with patience and communication. There were difficult moments, certainly. Times when Kevin's pride was bruised by Deanna's wealth, when she would offer to pay for something and he would resist, not wanting to feel like he was taking advantage. They worked through it by talking openly about their feelings and finding compromises. Deanna learned to be sensitive about when and how she offered help. Kevin learned to accept that sometimes letting her contribute was not about charity but about partnership, about building a life together where they both participated. Deanna's business associates and social circle were initially shocked by her relationship with a construction supervisor. Some were openly skeptical, questioning her judgment or suggesting Kevin was after her money. Deanna shut down those conversations firmly, making it clear that anyone who could not respect her relationship was not welcome in her life. To her surprise, several of her friendships strengthened as a result. The people who truly cared about her were happy to see her so genuinely joyful. They welcomed Kevin when Deanna brought him to social events, appreciating his grounded perspective and unpretentious nature. Kevin's world was more accepting overall. His coworkers and friends liked Deanna once they got past their initial intimidation. She made an effort to understand their lives and work, asking genuine questions and remembering details about their families. She never acted like she was better than them, and they appreciated that. Jake thrived with the attention and stability that came from having two adults who loved him. His grades stayed strong, his confidence grew, and he blossomed socially. Deanna attended parent-teacher conferences with Kevin, went to school plays and award ceremonies, became an integral part of Jake's support system. One Saturday afternoon in early spring, nearly 8 months after that first grocery store encounter, Deanna and Kevin took Jake to the park. It was a perfect day, warm but not hot, with a gentle breeze and puffy clouds drifting across a blue sky. Jake was playing on the climbing structure with some friends from school, while Deanna and Kevin sat on a bench nearby, holding hands and watching. "I have been thinking about something," Kevin said, a hint of nervousness in his voice. "What is that?" Deanna asked, turning to look at him. "My lease is up in 2 months. I could renew, but the rent is going up again. It is getting harder to justify the cost for such a small space." He paused, gathering courage. "I know this might be too fast, and you can absolutely say no, but I was wondering if you would want to consider moving in together. Not your place necessarily. Maybe we could find somewhere new, somewhere that is ours, where Jake can have a bigger room and a yard to play in." Deanna's heart swelled. This was the conversation she had been hoping for but had not wanted to push. "I would love that," she said simply. "Really?" Kevin looked relieved. "You do not think it is too soon? We have been together for 8 months, and honestly, I feel like I have known you forever. Besides, I spend most nights at your place anyway. We should just make it official." Kevin smiled, pulling her close. "Okay then, let us do it. Let us find a home together." They started house hunting the following week, looking for something that would work for all of them. Deanna could have bought anything outright, but Kevin was firm about contributing to the mortgage, about this being a shared investment even if the amounts they contributed were vastly different. They found a 3-bedroom house in a family-friendly neighborhood with good schools. It had a yard where Jake could play, a garage for Kevin's tools, and a home office where Deanna could work. It needed some updates, which Kevin was excited to handle himself, putting his construction skills to use on his own home. The negotiation over finances was delicate. Deanna wanted to pay the full price to give this to Kevin and Jake. Kevin insisted on contributing what he could, wanting to maintain his sense of self-reliance and partnership. They eventually agreed that Deanna would cover the down payment while Kevin handled the mortgage payments he could afford, with Deanna covering the difference without making a big deal of it. "This has to feel like our home, not like I am living in your house," Kevin explained. "I need to know I am contributing, that I am taking care of my family." Deanna understood, even if she found it frustrating at times. Kevin's pride was not toxic masculinity, but rather a deep-seated need to feel like a provider, a value instilled by his grandmother who had raised him. She could respect that while also finding ways to contribute that did not undermine his sense of self-worth. They moved in on a sunny Saturday in June, almost a year exactly since they had first met. Kevin's friends from work helped load the truck with furniture from his apartment, good-naturedly ribbing him about moving in with his rich girlfriend, but also genuinely happy for him. Jake was beside himself with excitement about his new room, which was twice the size of his old one. Deanna had surprised him with custom shelving for his ever-growing collection of dinosaur books and models, which had Kevin pulling her aside. "You did not have to do that," he said, though his tone was more grateful than accusatory. "I wanted to," Deanna replied. "He is important to me." "You both are. Let me spoil him a little sometimes." Kevin kissed her softly. "You have given us so much already. A home, stability, love. I never thought I would have this, Deanna, a partner who loves my son as much as I do." "I never thought I would have this either," Deanna admitted. "A family. People who love me for who I am, not what I have. You and Jake saved me in ways you do not even realize." They unpacked together over the following days, making decisions about where things should go, blending their possessions and their lives. Deanna's expensive artwork hung next to Jake's finger paintings. Kevin's worn but comfortable furniture mixed with Deanna's more modern pieces. It was eclectic and imperfect and absolutely perfect. The first night in their new home, after Jake had finally fallen asleep in his new room, exhausted from excitement, Deanna and Kevin sat on the back porch with glasses of wine, looking out at their yard. "This is really happening," Kevin said, wonder in his voice. "We have a home together. We are building a life." "We really are," Deanna agreed, leaning her head on his shoulder. "I need to tell you something," Kevin said, setting down his wine glass and turning to face her. "Something I have been thinking about for a while now." Deanna felt her pulse quicken. "Okay." "I want to marry you," Kevin said simply. "Not right now necessarily. I know Jake needs time to adjust to all these changes, and I want to make sure we are all ready. But I need you to know that this is not just a temporary thing for me. You are it, Deanna. You are the person I want to spend my life with. You are the woman I want to wake up next to every morning. You are the partner I want to raise Jake with, the person I want to grow old with." Deanna felt tears streaming down her face. "I want that too, all of it. Yes, Kevin." "Whenever you are ready to ask officially, the answer is yes." They held each other under the stars in the backyard of their new home, both of them overwhelmed by the journey that had brought them to this moment. From a chance encounter in a grocery store to this, to a real and lasting love that neither of them had been looking for, but both had desperately needed. Over the next several months, they settled into the rhythms of their blended life. Deanna continued running her company, but with better boundaries that allowed her to be present for the important moments. She attended Jake's soccer games and school events, helped with homework, packed lunches, and did all the mundane things that made up family life. Kevin took on more responsibility at work, eventually accepting a promotion to senior supervisor that came with better pay and more regular hours. His pride about being able to contribute more to the household finances was evident, and Deanna supported him without making him feel like her success diminished his accomplishments. Jake flourished in the stable, loving environment. He started calling Deanna by her first name mostly, but occasionally it would slip into Mom, which she never corrected. She loved that boy as if he were her own, would do anything to protect him and help him grow into the amazing person she could already see him becoming. On Christmas Eve, nearly 18 months after they first met, Kevin gave Deanna a small wrapped box. Jake was bouncing with excitement, clearly in on whatever secret was contained within. Deanna opened it with shaking hands to find a simple but beautiful engagement ring. It was not the enormous diamond someone of her wealth might have expected, but rather a thoughtful design that incorporated both their birthstones in a way that was elegant and meaningful. "Deanna Bennett," Kevin said, dropping to one knee while Jake watched with wide, delighted eyes. "You walked into my life, or more accurately, you nearly fell into my arms, and everything changed. You have loved me and my son with a generosity and authenticity I did not know existed. You have made us a family. Will you marry me? Will you officially become Jake's mom and my wife?" "Yes," Deanna said through tears. "Yes, absolutely yes." Kevin slipped the ring onto her finger while Jake cheered and threw himself at both of them, creating a group hug filled with laughter and happy tears. They married 6 months later in a ceremony that blended both their worlds. It was held in the backyard of their home, under a canopy of lights and flowers. Deanna's business associates mixed with Kevin's co-workers and construction buddies. Jake served as ring bearer, taking his responsibilities very seriously, though he could not stop grinning. Deanna wore a simple, elegant dress rather than an elaborate designer gown. Kevin wore a suit he had picked out himself, looking handsome and confident and happy. When they exchanged vows, both of them speaking from the heart about the journey that had brought them together, there was not a dry eye among their guests. "I promise to catch you whenever you fall," Kevin said, referencing their first meeting, "and to stand beside you as you chase your dreams. I promise to love you with everything I have, today and always." "I promise to be a partner to you and a mother to Jake," Deanna replied, her voice thick with emotion. "I promise to choose this family, this life, every single day. You saved me, Kevin. You showed me what really matters." "I love you more than I knew it was possible to love someone." When they kissed as husband and wife, Jake let out a whoop of celebration that had everyone laughing. The reception was joyful and relaxed, full of good food and music and people who genuinely cared about them, celebrating their love. As Deanna and Kevin danced their first dance as a married couple, swaying together under the lights, Deanna thought about how far she had come. A year and a half ago, she had been alone in her ivory tower, successful but disconnected, wealthy but impoverished in the ways that truly mattered. Now she had a husband who loved her unconditionally, a son who filled her days with laughter and purpose, and a life that was rich in all the ways money could never buy. She had learned that true wealth was not measured in bank accounts, but in moments like these, in the warmth of belonging, in the security of being truly known and loved anyway. "What are you thinking about?" Kevin murmured, pulling her closer. "How lucky I am," Deanna replied. "How grateful." "I am the lucky one," Kevin insisted. "You could have had anyone, but you chose us." "You chose me too," Deanna reminded him. "You took a chance on a woman who nearly fell on her face in front of you. You let me into your life and your heart. That was brave." "Loving you is the easiest thing I have ever done," Kevin said simply, and kissed her again as their friends and family cheered. The years that followed were not without challenges. No life is perfect, no matter how much love is present. There were disagreements about money and parenting, stressful moments when work demands conflicted with family needs, times when the blending of their different backgrounds caused friction. But they faced each challenge as a team, with communication and compromise and unwavering commitment. They learned and grew together, becoming better versions of themselves through their partnership. Jake continued to thrive, growing from a 7-year-old boy into a confident teenager who knew without question that he was loved by both his parents. Deanna was mom in every way that mattered, the woman who showed up to parent-teacher conferences and bandaged scraped knees, and stayed up late helping with science projects. When Jake was 14, Deanna and Kevin sat him down to ask if he would be open to Deanna officially adopting him. His biological mother had signed away her parental rights years ago and was not involved in his life. Jake cried happy tears and said yes immediately, and Deanna cried right along with him. The adoption was finalized on a Tuesday afternoon in a judge's chambers. It was a simple proceeding legally, but emotionally it was profound. Deanna was now officially Jake's mother, her name on his birth certificate, their bond recognized by law as well as by heart. That evening, they celebrated with Jake's favorite meal, homemade meatballs and spaghetti, the same recipe Kevin had shared with Deanna all those years ago via text message. It felt full circle somehow, appropriate. Remember when you could not even figure out if the oil was hot enough? Kevin teased, bumping Deanna's shoulder as they cooked together in their kitchen. I have learned a few things since then, Deanna replied with a laugh, though I still cannot fold a fitted sheet. No one can, Jake said from his spot at the kitchen table where he was supposedly doing homework, but was actually watching them cook. It is impossible. Your grandma could, Kevin said with a wistful smile. He still missed his grandmother, though she had passed away peacefully several years earlier. She had lived long enough to meet Deanna and give her blessing, telling Kevin that he had found someone special and to hold on to her. They ate dinner together as they did most nights, talking about their days, making plans for the weekend, just being together. These were the moments Deanna treasured most, the ordinary everyday experiences that made up a life well lived. After dinner, while Kevin was helping Jake with his algebra homework, Deanna stepped out onto the back porch with a cup of tea. The yard where they had gotten married had matured beautifully. There was a vegetable garden Kevin had planted, a swing set they had installed when Jake was younger that was now rarely used, but held too many memories to take down. Kevin joined her after a few minutes, sliding an arm around her waist. "What are you thinking about?" It was a question he had asked her countless times over the years, always genuinely interested in her thoughts and feelings. "Just reflecting," Deanna said, leaning into him. "Remember when we first met, when you caught me from falling in that grocery store? How could I forget? You looked so mortified, trying to maintain dignity while your expensive wine bottle rolled away." Deanna laughed. "I was mortified, but also intrigued. There was something about you, even in that brief interaction. You were so kind, so genuine." "I thought you were beautiful," Kevin admitted. "Even flustered and off balance, there was something striking about you, but I never imagined we would end up here. Married, raising Jake together, building this life." "Life has a way of surprising us," Deanna said, "leading us to people and places we never expected. I spent so many years focused on building my company, accumulating wealth and success. I thought that was what mattered, what would make me happy. But it was not until I fell, quite literally, into your life that I understood what I had been missing." "Connection," Kevin said softly. "Love," Deanna added. "Real, unconditional love, the kind that shows up and does the hard work and chooses each other every single day." They stood together in comfortable silence, watching the sun set over their yard, over the home and life they had built together. Inside, Jake was probably sneaking a video game instead of finishing his homework, and one of them would need to go check on him soon. There were dishes to wash and laundry to fold, and a million other mundane tasks that filled their evenings, and Deanna would not trade any of it for anything. Not for more money or more success or more prestige. This was the life she had been searching for without knowing it, the family she had been missing, the love that made everything else pale in comparison. "Thank you," she said to Kevin, squeezing his hand. "For what?" "For catching me when I fell, in every way." Kevin turned to face her, cupping her face in his weathered, capable hands. Thank you for being brave enough to fall, for taking a chance on a struggling single dad who had nothing to offer but love. You had everything to offer, Deanna corrected him. You just did not realize it. You gave me a family, Kevin. You gave me purpose and belonging and a reason to want to come home at the end of the day. You showed me what really matters in life. They kissed, soft and sweet and full of years of shared history, of love that had been tested and proven strong. When they broke apart, both of them were smiling. We should probably check on Jake, Kevin said. Make sure he has not abandoned homework completely. Probably, Deanna agreed. But they stood there for another moment, neither willing to break the spell of contentment that surrounded them. Inside, Jake had indeed abandoned his algebra in favor of a video game, which he quickly tried to hide when his parents walked in. Kevin gave him a knowing look while Deanna tried not to laugh. Finish your homework, buddy, Kevin said. Then you can play for 30 minutes before bed. But Dad, I am almost to the next level, Jake protested with the time-honored tradition of teenagers everywhere. Homework first, then gaming, Deanna reinforced gently. That is the deal. Jake sighed dramatically but pulled his textbook back out. You two are such a team, I cannot get away with anything anymore. That is kind of the point, Kevin said, ruffling his son's hair affectionately. We are looking out for you. Deanna helped Jake work through a few tricky problems while Kevin cleaned up the kitchen. Later, after Jake had gotten his gaming time and gone to bed, Deanna and Kevin settled on the couch together, her head on his shoulder, his arm around her, just being together. This was their life now. Not perfect, not always easy, but real and full and rich with love. Deanna thought about her younger self, the woman who had been so focused on professional success that she had neglected every other aspect of her life. She wished she could go back and tell that woman that everything would be okay. That one day she would trip over her own expensive shoes and fall into the arms of a man who would change everything. But maybe she would not change anything, because every step of her journey had led her here. To this couch, in this house, with this family. Every late night at the office and lonely evening in her penthouse had been worth it because it all led to Kevin catching her that day in the grocery store. I love you, she whispered to Kevin. I love you too, he replied, kissing the top of her head. Thank you for falling into my life. Deanna smiled, letting her eyes drift closed. Thank you for catching me. Years later, when Jake graduated from high school, Deanna and Kevin sat in the audience watching their son walk across the stage to receive his diploma, both of them bursting with pride. He had grown into an incredible young man, confident and kind, ready to take on the world. At the graduation party they threw at their house, surrounded by friends and family, Jake pulled Deanna aside. He was taller than her now, had been for a couple years, but his eyes were still the same warm hazel he had inherited from his father. I want to thank you, he said seriously. For everything. For choosing us, for being my mom, for loving Dad. I know you did not have to. You could have had an easier life, probably, but you chose us anyway. Deanna felt tears threatening. Jake, being your mom has been one of the greatest privileges of my life. There was no choice involved, not really. I love you. I have loved you since you were 7 years old telling me about dinosaurs in the grocery store. I love you too, Mom, Jake said, pulling her into a hug. Thank you for catching Dad when he was falling for you. And for letting him catch you first. Deanna laughed through her tears. We caught each other, I think. That is what family does. Kevin joined them, wrapping his arms around both Deanna and Jake. What are you two getting emotional about over here? Just talking about how lucky we are, Jake said. We really are, Kevin agreed, looking at Deanna with so much love it took her breath away even after all these years. The luckiest family in the world. As Deanna stood there, held by her husband and their son, she thought about that day so many years ago when she had stumbled in a grocery store and been caught by a stranger who became everything. She thought about the journey from lonely billionaire to beloved wife and mother, about how the best things in life could not be bought or planned or anticipated. Sometimes you just had to fall. Trust that someone would catch you, and be brave enough to build something beautiful together. That was the real wealth, the only kind that truly mattered. And Deanna Bennett Parker, standing in her backyard surrounded by love and laughter and the family she had found in the most unexpected way, knew she was the richest woman in the world.